Post from Oak, Jersey. Everyone has at least one good story. What's yours? Asked the question and promptly forgot about it until 6 hours later. Needless to say, I was surprised when I logged back in. Edit. I asked, and you told. It will take me a day or two. But I will read every comment. Comment from shesafox. Background. My dad is a drama queen and has tons of stories like this one. He's Norwegian and spent his first year of college at University of Windsor. There was some initial confusion on his part when it came to enrolling in courses. So he ended up not getting into any of the ones that he needed for his major. He went to the registrar to complain about this, and was promptly told that he could blame himself. And tough shit. Basically, my dad, having always been a clever jerk, decided to give CBC a call. CBC sent a reporter and a camera guy to my dad's dorm. And they proceeded to follow my dad around on campus. It was a rainy day and the story looked like this. A hopeful Norwegian boy came all the way to Canada to go to college, but didn't get to enroll in any of the courses he wanted. Here he is, sad and alone, standing alone in the rain on campus at U of Windsor. So the next morning, my dad wakes up and immediately turns on the TV to see if his story is on the local news. They had told him they weren't sure whether it would be or not. To his disappointment, his story is not featured. So he walks into the kitchen to make breakfast. TV still on in the background. As the local news finish, the national news broadcast starts. Turns out, my dad was the top story in all of Canada that day. He was immediately contacted by the dean of the university, who apologized frantically and ensured my dad that he could enroll in whatever courses he desired. Comment from nurse_KPO. My first day of first grade one was waiting for the bus with my mother. The street I lived on connected to a very busy huge hill of a main road. I watched this woman zoom down this curve on a bicycle going way too fast and hit a pothole. She flipped her bike and flew over her handlebars and hit a car that was coming up the road. Traffic stopped and my mom ran to this lady. She took her shirt off and started wrapping her head with the bleeding. I stayed with this lady while my mom ran back to our house and called 911. This was the early 90s and cell phones weren't a thing. I guess life was a little more trusting back then too. Because no one thought twice about a 6-year-old caring for a bleeding unconscious woman in the road. The kicker is, none of these passengers in stopped cars did anything but stand around and watch. I truly believe it was this strange and traumatic moment that made me the terribly overcautious paranoid child I was and pursue nursing as an adult. I will never ever forget that lady, and I never knew what happened to her either after the ambulance came and took her away. TLDR, I was late for my first day of school because I was covered in someone else's blood. Comment from deathrayy. One time my younger brother was vacuuming the house and came across a large huntsman spider. Instead of trapping it or killing it or telling literally anyone else in the house, he decided to just suck it up in the vacuum and be done with it. He left the vacuum with the bag still inside in the laundry while we went on holiday for a couple of weeks. We returned to the house infested with tiny spiders. We started killing them. They started getting bigger. Eventually we had to have the house fumigated. For added horror, feel free to Google image search Australian huntsman, and keep in mind a full-sized one of those bad boys can be as big as your hand. Edit. People commenting that they're bros because they eat bugs and aren't venomous enough to kill you. They're also giant hairy beasts that stick to your skin if they land on you and run faster than my dog. Y'all need Jesus. Comment from sweatygunther. TLDR, witnessed a volcanic eruption. I grew up in a place called Taupo, New Zealand, and just out of town is a volcano called Mount Ruapehu. One particular day I was staring out the window when I noticed a thick plume of ash rising up and told the teacher that it had just erupted. But being the class clown, she thought it was just another one of my disruptions. Until the quiet kid in class spoke up. She had told us to stay where we are and left the classroom to talk with the other teachers about what to do, but by the time she had come back the ash had reached us. It was 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and now it was as black as night. She then told us that if our parents usually pick us up then to wait in class, but if we lived close by then we could leave. My best friend lived just down the road and decided to grab our stuff and leave. I'll never forget the moment we opened the classroom door and stepped outside. Everything was covered in a thick coat of soot and ash and it was just so freaking dark, which made crossing the road scary as hell. You could barely see the headlights of approaching cars until they were right in front of you. but thankfully it was the only road we had to cross on our walk home, and the rest of the way was through a gully that took us right to my backyard. The next morning I woke up and it felt a lot colder than it usually did, but I just wanted to watch the morning episode of Captain Planet for once and went running for the TV. My mother walked in and said, "I thought you'd be outside playing with the others," but I had no idea what she meant. I looked outside my window and saw that it had actually snowed at my house for the first time ever. Apparently after a volcanic eruption it causes a volcanic winter, which can make it snow. I had the longest driveway that went downhill. Had a slight turn and went down even further into a cul-de-sac, so all the neighborhood kids came to play at my house to slide down my driveway. I've never been that happy in my entire life. I miss that day. Edit. I forgot how to words. Comment from GreenMTNS. I was fishing with a friend in a small pond a few years ago. My friend cast out a few times and went to reel in. But he snagged something about halfway back. Though it was just a branch or some weeds. But when he pulled it up out of the water, his hook was embedded in the balls of a 10-inch purple dildo that was burned on the end for some reason. I thought that was pretty hilarious and I'll probably never forget it. TLDR. Dildo fishing. Comment from key10_but. Backstory. I was 15 and had driver's ed but didn't have my license yet. We also had to take first aid CPR classes at my high school. My mom and I were home on a Saturday while my dad was at a riverboat gambling. Mom and I got into a fight, so I was upstairs pouting like a typical teenager. I was napping when I heard her start screaming my name. It wasn't an angry scream. It was a scared scream, which freaked me out. I ran downstairs to find blood everywhere on the floor. All over the dining room. Kitchen. Puddles of it. It's coming from my mom's ankle. A vein had ruptured and for a while she didn't realize blood was running out of her as she sat at the kitchen table. From having first aid, I knew I had to get a tourniquet on her ankle to stop her losing more blood. We lived 20 minutes from the nearest hospital and I didn't even think to call 911. I put her in the back seat with her leg up, wrapped tightly in towels, and drove like mad to get her there. I kept her talking, but as I was getting close to the she was slurring her speech and her eyes were rolling back in her head. The personnel got her from the vehicle and did their thing. The doctor later told me that if I had been any later she would have died. She lost almost half of her blood. She was diagnosed as diabetic while in the hospital, which helped save her life. 2. As a side note, as the staff were working on my mom, I had my grandmother repeatedly call my house phone. This was in the early 90s with no cell phones, to see if she could contact my dad. I was scared he was going to walk in, see puddles of blood and bloody footprints everywhere and have a heart attack from the shock. TLDR, I saved my mom from bleeding out when I was 15. Comment from deleted. When I was 10, I rescued this 3-mo puppy from a shelter. I was a pretty shy kid and I basically did everything with this puppy. She was my best friend. A few years later my parents divorced. I decided to live with my father, and shortly after the divorce, he began to see this younger woman who didn't like dogs. They eventually married, and one day I came home from school and my puppy was gone. My dad had gotten rid of her to fulfill his new wife's wishes. I was heartbroken. Fast forward 4 years later, my junior year of high school, my grandmother gets this call from a shelter who says, "We found your dog." Despite being completely confused and perplexed as to what they were talking about, my grandma went to the shelter to see what they were talking about, and it turned out to be my baby girl. We had chipped her, thankfully. Even though 4 years had passed, it didn't matter. I had gotten her back again and wasn't going to let anything come in the way. Now 22 and 5 years later from getting her back, my almost 13-year-old puppy is still with me. http://imager. Com. A. Sig 5J, first pick is when I got her back. Other 6 are since, *. Hey everyone. So a lot of people have been asking how my dad and I are now. We are okay now. It's still a major wound between us, but we've worked through it. He's apologized and acknowledged what he's done, and that's what really matters to me in the end because of how much it affected me as a kid. It will always hurt me when I think about it, but those are years I can never get back, so I try to be understanding, positive about the situation, more so than maybe I should, despite what he did, even though it wrecked me. He is a pretty big jerk though, if I'm honest with myself, so all the name calling is pretty appropriate in the end. Sliced Bananas pretty much nailed it from the beginning. I just try to be the better person. Asterisk. A lot of people have also been asking if my dog recognized me. I think so. My grandmother and I went to go pick her up from the shelter together, and when I opened her cage, she ran straight to me and seemed to press into my chest. From then on I just assumed she had. It was a very nerve-wracking experience. I was so nervous that she wouldn't recognize me. Asterisk. Also, note, I still don't know what happened to her during those 4 years. Apparently my dad had initially given her to my aunt, who arranged for a friend to give her to another friend type of thing. But I really don't know at this point, and given the state she was in when I got her back, it's probably best it remains a mystery. She was in really bad physical condition and she had a lot of emotional scarring. She was deathly afraid of men, both of which took months to rehabilitate. I think it would kill me inside to know what she went through. Comment from TBEMason. I'd say that my best story stems from my unreasonable misfortune with the movie Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. Now, hear me out. The first time I tried to watch this movie, I decided to go to the movie theater to see it with my girlfriend at the time. I was in the 10th grade and we had been dating for like 5 or 6 months. I shit you not. As the previews for the movie end, girlfriend decides that's the best time to lean over to me and start the whole, "Look, I don't think this is gonna work out" thing. She broke up with me right then and there. We just kinda left the theater after that. The second time, I had gone back to the theater with some friends. They decided to treat me to a night out after I had been so suddenly dumped by my ex. Well, after actually making it through the previews this time, the movie begins. We're sitting there watching for about half an hour when the fucking fire alarm goes off. Everyone in the theater gets up a little confused and proceeds to leave through the emergency exit. Some asshat had pulled the fire alarm, and the entire theater was at the box office trying to get refunds. The line for refunds was ridiculous, so we just left. The third and final time I tried to watch this godforsaken film, I was at a close friend's house. Almost a full year later, his mom had cooked spaghetti for dinner, and we, my friend, his mom, his stepdad, and me, decided to put on MI4 to watch while we ate. I was just saying, man, y'all know, I seem to have bad luck with this movie, when shit got real. My friend's stepdad started choking on the spaghetti. Like, really choking. We had to call an ambulance, and he ended up going to the hospital. My friend and I waited at his house after being assured by the paramedics that he'd be alright. And yet again, I didn't finish the movie. I've officially decided it's for the best if I just never try to watch Ghost Protocol again. *TLDR*****. Tom Cruise wants to ruin my life. Comment from Deleted. Was asked to dress as a whale mascot for a parade. Rode on the bumper of an ancient fire truck on the hottest day of the year. Some combination of CO and heat caused me to begin projectile vomiting within the costume. Then I passed out. Luckily I had my flipper secured enough to keep me on the truck. Last thing I heard was, "Mommy, what's wrong with that whale?" As I began dangling unconscious for the remainder of the route. Came to as they were loading us into a flatbed to get back to our cars. Dad made me ride on trash bags home. 20 plus years ago. I can still smell the moment. Comment from down_vote_magnet. **TLDR. My girlfriend and I stumbled upon 2 change machines giving out free money, once on a random weekday during the middle of the day. My girlfriend and I were both off work and ended up in an arcade by the bowling cinema complex. In the UK, don't know about elsewhere, these arcades always have machines to win small amounts of coins and useless toys. So I go to the change machine to get some 10p coins. I put in 20p. But instead of 2x 10p coins dropping out, I get 2x £1. Strange. So anyway, I still want my 10p coin so I can play the machine. So I put in another 20p coin I had in my pocket. And again I get 2x £1 back. At this point I figured something was up and I call my girlfriend over and tell her I put 40p in the machine and it gave me £4. I tried putting in the only other coin I had, which was a 50p coin. Sure enough, I got 5x £1 from the machine. I don't know what's going on, so I try putting a £1 coin in. And I get 10x £1 coins back. Neither of us can quite believe what is happening. But I try a couple more times just recycling the £1 coins into the machine. And I keep getting 10x £1 coins back. After about 4 times, Nothing happens. The machine must be out of coins. We are both at this point extremely confused, excited, and somewhat paranoid. There's nobody else around. The whole place is dead. My pockets are full of £1 coins. I go to the other machine and cautiously put in another £1 coin. And magically 10x £1 coins come out again. Both machines are doing this for some reason. I try a couple more times on that machine and eventually the paranoia just gets too much for us and we both think, something fucking weird is going on here. We should, go. So we both quick walk out of there. Me looking like some kind of paranoid Basil Fawlty. Just wanting to get to the car so we can collect our thoughts. My pockets are so loaded with coins they are falling down. I have literally no more space in me to carry £1 coins. When we get in the car we both sit there and I begin emptying my coins into my girlfriend's lap. We count something £70 minus 80 and £1 coins and seriously discuss if we are the subject of one of those TV prank shows. The whole thing was just so surreal. With nobody around and both machines just giving out free money to us. We drove home and nothing else ever came of it. So we came to the conclusion that someone must have put in rolls of £1 coins for some reason into both machines, instead of 10p coins. Either way, it was one of those things that happened which was just super funny, surreal at the time and is always one of our favorite stories to reminisce about. Yeah, I know we're technically thieves, but it was magical. Comment from Kethinov. I got moved to a team on the 2nd floor. My desk was on the 4th floor. I stopped coming to work. The 4th floor team thought I moved downstairs. The 2nd floor team thought I was still upstairs. I just worked from home instead, for over a year. Comment from augenwiehimmel. Former coworker got shot in the head during his time in the army. As they tried to remove the bullet, a tumor was found. This tumor would have killed him within a year. He survived and is alive and kicking. Comment from A_furious_mind. During a time in my life when I was post-divorce, deep in debt, living paycheck to paycheck on an impossibly thin budget, I turned in all my airline miles for a free solo trip to Vegas. I had astigmatism, and couldn't afford corrective lenses. So I went to the optical shop for a free pair of sample contacts so I could see the strip in all its majesty. On my first day there, I put in the lenses and accidentally scratched my right eye. Overnight it became painfully infected. I went to the clinic and was diagnosed with a huge corneal ulcer that threatened to permanently blind that eye. I was given antibiotics, but I needed to be seen several more times because the injury was so severe. I had no insurance and no way to pay for this. The doctors were great, so I wasn't afraid of losing my eye. But the medical bills on top of my financial situation would have been devastating. I went to the Treasure Island Casino gift shop and bought a toy eye patch to cover the wound. Skull and crossbones. Of course. Then, I took the $20 I had in my pocket and went to work. I'm not a gambler, but I knew the video blackjack machines had the best odds. I built up small wins, and had them cut down by losses, leaving me with only $5. I went for a walk and tried to get my head right. Tried again and lost that $5 too. I went to my bank's website, borrowed a $20 advance, and took it out at the ATM. I tried again. This time things came together. I managed to grow that $20 into just over $500. Enough to cover my bills. I stopped there, not wanting to press my luck further. The toy eye patch now hangs on my refrigerator, next to a magnet from the ophthalmologist's office. It's a reminder of the time I gambled for mercy and won. Comment from Fandorin. I transferred groups within my company and it was my first day in the new group. I got to my office, and my new bosses were smoking outside. I shot the shit with them, and went up to the office to sit in my new spot. I was on the 9th floor, with my back to the window. I sat down at my computer and turned it on. A few seconds later there was a massive explosion behind me. The whole building shook. I ran to the window, and saw a bunch of debris floating in the air, and a lot of birds flying in crazy patterns. My first thought was a car bomb, but I couldn't see anything looking down. After a few seconds, I crouched down in my window and looked up. I saw a massive gaping hole in World Trade 1. I was maybe a 150 yards away at 222 Broadway, right across the street from St. Paul's Church, so I had an unobstructed view. I kept staring at the impact site until the second explosion, second plane, woke me the fuck up and everyone figured out it wasn't random. I tried calling out, but all the lines were down. It was election day in NYC. So my grandma was working in one of the polling stations. My parents were on vacation in France. I managed to reach my friend's dad and asked him to call and tell people I'm okay. I went back to the window and saw people jump. That was by far the worst part for me. A bit later I did manage to reach my friend. I was on the phone with her when one of the towers started collapsing. I yelled, "They're falling," into the phone. THRW it down. And ran towards the stairwell. Last thing I heard was, "What's falling?" out of the receiver. I managed to make it down into a sub-basement with a few other people. Others were in server rooms. And some left the building and ran. After a couple of hours in the basement, the building AC system was overloaded, and our room started filling up with smoke and dust. I found some water, and soaked my shirt, wrapped it around my face and got the fuck out. I walked northeast, past City Hall Park, towards the bridges. Brooklyn Bridge had a lot of smoke blowing over it. So I went to Manhattan Bridge, along with a few thousand others. In the middle of the bridge, a couple of military planes flew fairly low over the bridge and everyone hit the deck. That was true terror. After I made it to Brooklyn, there were a bunch of people handing out water, a church on one side of Flatbush Avenue, and a synagogue on the other. It was a very NYC moment. I went into a school and used the phone to let somebody know I was alive. It was another 2 hours of walking till I made it home. In the evening, I got together with all of my buddies, and we tried to get drunk. It didn't work. We drank, and nobody felt it. It was too much. I managed to get in touch with my parents the next morning. They couldn't call NY at all for almost 24 hours because the lines were overwhelmed. You could smell the smoke for months, especially on the subways. It was shitty. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.